This week on Three Dad Bods.
45% of first marriages fail, 60% of second marriages fail, 75% of third marriages fail. Well, if education and intervention is the thing that can prevent 2/3 of divorces, when's the best time to get that education and intervention?
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Three Dad Bods with Brent, Carl, and our special guest, third dad bod, Jonathan. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Hey, it's good to see you again, man.
Glad to be in such
Welcome,
illustrious
welcome.
dad bod company here.
We're the best. We're very, very dad bodish. We'll put it that way.
I do
Brent's
have
not
to
as
admit,
dad
though,
bodish as me, though.
I've been shedding my dad bod, and I actually had a milestone today. Today was my 500th class from Orange Theory Fitness. So
What?
Oh, good
I
job,
will
too.
give
Holy
them
cow.
100 shameless free plugs, but it has been a group of people, a community that have really worked for me. And that's
Wow.
the thing that I've really enjoyed. You know, I've done the Planet Fitness. I was bored to death. I'd do a set and I'd look on my phone and, stumble around and then do another set. And then, this is a community that no matter who you are, no matter what your limits are, no matter what your goals are, they support you. And it's fantastic. They are the best group of people. I love going there every class. We get in there, we joke, we laugh, we push each other to the extreme. I just had a new guy in there today, just want to introduce myself to him. I'm like, hey, we all start from the first class. There's always a first class, so if you guys are ever interested in something in a good group and community to help you achieve what you want to do with your goals, I highly recommend contacting your local Orange Theory Fitness.
That is a great endorsement. That's cool.
They should give us a sponsorship
should.
fee
They
for
really
that.
should.
That was a great commercial.
I'm actually doing that for my referrals so I can get $100 off each month. So,
There
but sure, you mentioned Brent Whitley referred you from Three Dad Bods.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome.
That's also,
So-
so are you down a certain amount of pounds, or obviously this is clearly good for health and fitness. Is there also been a goal that you've been getting on?
When I started, I was close to 300 pounds, and I got down to 220. I'm back up to 230. I'm
Dang, that's impressive.
now taking part of it. It's called a transformation challenge. It's for the next 45 days. And I want to get back down to that 220 point. But, health wise, I've never been this healthy, and probably since I was in my teens, early 20s.
That's impressive.
Before I
I've
found
got
out
to
what
get
beer
there.
was.
I've got to get there. That's
If you
impressive.
shave that beard, you
Fantastic.
might lose 3 or 4 Brad.
Oh, this is a magnificent beer, though, Carl, and I've actually trimmed it.
Well, hey, Jonathan. So Jonathan is an old friend of mine, and we used to live in the same neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we did.
A few years
Yeah.
ago.
That's right.
A few decades
A
ago.
few decades, few millennia ago.
Yeah, I remember when your family was really young. So you're married, father of 4.
Father of 4.
Tell us, you've got an amazing wife, and then
Amazing wife.
your children's names, or do you
Yeah,
want
we
to
got
do that?
2 boys, 2 girls. The boys are on the outside, girls are on the inside, ages 22 to 29. My oldest is a writer like your daughter, and
Mhm.
they just on their own ended up in the same writers group, and they're a good tight knit group of friends. And so they had their writers group meeting, as you know, just over at our house yesterday. Yeah, and
You made cheese sandwiches for them, and I didn't get one.
I know.
I don't know what's going on
Your
there.
daughter didn't bring you one, so blame her.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. So, but no, it was fun, and it was. I've always loved when the kids were little or teenagers. I always told them like, hey, anytime you guys want grilled cheese sandwiches or chocolate chip waffles, anytime up to midnight, I'll bust it out for you guys. So,
Yeah.
and some of their friends would take advantage of that, and it was great. So I always loved having. I've always loved having a noisy house full of my kids and their friends.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
we're
Well, look-
empty nesters now. We're in that empty nest stage, and so it was kind of really nice to the kids. Adam said, "Oh, I don't want to." You're the Mindy and the rest of the guys in the writing group, like, "Oh, we don't want to put your dad out." And I'm like, Adam was like, "He loves this. He loves that crap." I love having people around and having making the kids feel special and stuff, even if they're adult kids.
Well, I guess
That's
that's
awesome.
why you went into the profession you're in. So you are a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Utah,
Yes, sir.
branded as a relationship strategist, right?
Yep.
And you have a website called relategreat.net.
Yep.
And you are the famous owner of the Chalk Bus, which is a Utah County thing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you've lived in Utah County, you've seen the Chalk Bus somewhere.
Yep. If you
So,
go hashtag chalk bus, you'll see it all over Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
What is this chalk bus?
oh
The
yeah,
I want to hear
tell
what the
about it.
chalk bus
Yeah,
is.
All right. Okay. Well, the chalk bus, my friend, is a 1969 Volkswagen hippie bus that my wife and I picked up 30 years ago when we were first married in here in Provo, Utah, and I used to paint student apartments, and I had a little Honda Aero 80cc scooter that I carried all my paint gear going around all around Provo painting student apartments, and it was not the right vehicle for carrying a lot of 5-gallon buckets and paint poles and things like that strapped to it. And so my buddy found this on one of his delivery routes. He found this old '69 Volkswagen bus that was running, and got back then you could get them for fairly cheap, and fairly cheap back then was fairly expensive for us because we were poor college kids. But we held on to this bus. I used it for a few years before the engine broke down. That was my paint truck, and then hung on to it over the years. And several years ago, I got it running again, and was doing some body work on it, and was using some black rust primer, and it has rough texture like chalkboard paint. My youngest was drawing on the sidewalk with some chalk, and I said, come over here and draw on this. I wonder if this would work like a chalkboard, and it did perfectly. And the idea kind of sprung from there, because it's just the hippie bus is just a big rectangle. It's just a box, it looks like a bread box. I thought, hey, that'd be kind of cool, man. It's still traveling. You could, kind of one of the things that's iconic with these old buses, right, is people, the hippies kind of drawing their own custom hippie flowers and peace signs and things like that on it. But that's, once it's painted, then it's kind of static. But I thought, well, gosh, I kind of do the same thing with chalk, but then it gets to be written on and then washed off, and written on and then washed off. And people, so wherever I go, I have on the two backside windows these little shower caddies that are glued to the window that are filled with sidewalk chalk. I got this big sticker on the back, vinyl sticker, that says "Draw on Me," so that wherever I go, the grocery store or the movies, it's just sitting out there, and then people can come up, kids, teenagers, grandparents, whatever, can just walk up there and just draw random stuff on it. And it's been going on for probably about a decade now, and it's kind of become its own little thing, and it's been a lot of fun. It's made a lot of fun,
awesome
connections and cool conversations. It's been in a music video, it's been in the newspaper, it's been on the radio, it's been in all kinds of fun stuff. There's a documentary being done about it. It's just it just kind of turned into a lark. I was just doing it temporarily until I could afford to get a real paint job and really restore it the right way. And no, it's just 6 cans of black Rust-Oleum spray paint that every year I have to repaint it. And and I'm never going to change it. It's this fun little thing. So that's the chalk bus, man. Yeah.
That is so
I've always
cool.
tried to ask you this question. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen on your chalk bus? And then what's the most inspiring thing you've seen?
Oh
written
man,
onto the
great
chalk
question.
bus?
I will
Great
tell you,
question.
there'd be 6 words I would put.
What?
You don't want
There would
Brent
be-
next to your
There
chalk.
would be 6 words. No, there would be 6 words. It would say, "Get out of the left lane." That's all it would say on the back.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that is not a vehicle you want in the left lane, man. That is a solid 60 miles an hour with the wind at my back, on a good day, downhill. And that is not a vehicle you want to drive in if you're in a hurry, or if you're impatient. But no, people, funny thing is, you said, what's the worst thing that's been on it? People used to say, when I first started it, they're like, oh man, you shouldn't do that, because these old vintage vehicles, you got to keep like precious, right? Don't let, look, don't touch. The chalk bus is look, touch, draw on it, interact with it, be a part of it, have a moment with it that you get to have, and you can take pictures by and do your own thing. And of course, the natural fear is that people are like, well, people are going to draw all kinds of things on it, penises and boobs and F words and things like that.
We were faced that, but
Well, you guys probably would, miscreants like you guys would, I'd have to be monitoring like crazy. But so whenever I come out like the grocery store, I'll do a quick 360 walk around and take pictures of what everybody drew on there. But you know how often I have to erase stuff, bad stuff on there or inappropriate, because it's like a family show, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe once a year.
That's
Out of all
cool.
the times I mean, it's really, I think most people kind of get it. They kind of get, hey, this is cool. Be cool with it. And
Mhm.
so, but the most inspiring thing, well, the coolest thing, then I'll tell you the most inspiring. The coolest thing is my niece, Sage Sagers. She's this amazing artist, and she will do she'll take a whole week
Hmm.
for like Chalk the Block, those chalk art events, Chalk the Block down in and the Riverwoods in Provo, Utah. She will take a whole week, and with those fine pastel chalks, she will do a full 360 mural
Oh,
around it. It takes her
really?
probably 40 plus hours to do that.
Holy
Wow.
cow.
And
360 around the
yeah,
van.
all around it. And I've got, if you
Wow.
go on my website, if you go to relategreat.net/chalk bus, you'll see all these great things on there. And, it's just the most beautiful things. And she's done 6 of them over the past 7 years. And they're just breathtakingly beautiful and whatnot. But as far as the most inspiring thing that's ever been on it, well, generally when you take the chalk bus out, people will draw on it, and then eventually there's no space left. So people will draw over whatever's
Mhm.
there, and which is fine. And if it's left out for a long time, it's hard to read anything because it's just so filled up. Especially if you're at like an event. If I take it somewhere at an event where it's not just people passing by in the grocery store, but like an event where there's just tons of people, it'll just get filled up and just be a mess. Well, a few years ago, I took it to the American Suicide Prevention Association, or whatever their name is. I'm getting them
Oh,
wrong
okay.
right now. But they have a suicide prevention walk each year to raise awareness and funds for suicide prevention and intervention, which is a cause that's near and dear to my heart as a mental health therapist. Um, and everybody was drawing on it. They were drawing memories of someone they've lost, or how much we miss you, we love you,
Mhm.
or messages of encouragement to people who are struggling. Hang in there, it gets better. And what was really cool about it is it got all filled up, but not one person drew over anybody else's message.
Right.
I've
Wow.
never seen it. It was this unspoken rule of I'm not going to step over, I'm not going to cross anybody else's line.
Wow.
And it was so, besides
That's
all the
cool.
inspiring messages, just kind of the feeling of just this shared, almost sacred experience of respect, that this is like a memoriam that people were making.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know, it was kind of cool. I've
So-
never seen anything like it before or since.
So it's kind of turned into almost a therapy device or tool for your practice in a way.
It has. It has. I really, I kind of thought it might be like a kind of a cool marketing thing, but it hasn't really done much for my marketing for my business per se, but it really fits with what Relate Great is all about. What everything I do in my life is about, when I got into this in the first place, I want people to have, great relationships, about connections. And we as humans are wired for connection. And there's so much in society that creates disconnection, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
and you think about I mean, obviously, if the three of us, if we didn't know each other and we were passing on the street, we wouldn't stop and talk to each other. But if I had
I've
a
never talked to
dog,
Carl. I didn't talk to him, and I know him.
hey, well, that's probably why you don't talk to him, because you know him so well.
I see Brent's calling. I just hit forward. No, that- all he wants to do
Experience,
is
you learn from experience. That's wise. Yeah.
he just wants
And-
to tell me how BYU sucks and used to it. So
Well, there's truth to it, and I
Oh,
am BYU alumni.
man.
So,
we gotta
but no, but I mean, it's like if I were to see you guys and I had my kids with me or something, and you had a dog, we could immediately stop and bond and connect as humans through that dog, right?
Right.
Or someone's holding a kid, you can stop to and say, "Oh, hey, what a beautiful baby you have there." That we can connect through those things. But normally we would just kind of not make eye contact, or maybe do maybe a nod and pass by. The chalk bus, everyone's drawn to it. People, they want to come up and tell the story of, oh my gosh, I've always wanted one of those, or my granddad used to have one of those, or we used to have one of those when we were growing up, or we had a bug or whatever. Or I just think it's just a cool thing. And people start talking and you start connecting, and all of a sudden it's like, it's just one of those, it's just another excuse to connect human to human, which we just need so much more of in the world. But we live in
It's
worlds
true.
where we're just kind of all isolated and people are
And they
enemies.
want to
And
isolate us.
yeah,
I
yeah,
really admire that. Carl and I have often talked about, the simple way of just how a smile and a good morning can change somebody's attitude. Something just as
right.
simple as that. And so
Simple.
to have something like you have, something where you could put a positive message out or draw a funny picture, or you're drawing people away from the conundrum of what we're fed with 24 hours a day of
Right.
all this negativity over and over and over. And I
Yeah,
bet that those messages from the people from that group, I bet they were incredibly inspirational,
they really
heart
were.
wrenching, and something that you could read and really sit back and make yourself better, if you would, because like,
Totally.
I don't know if Carl's told you, but I have a Facebook page, and every day I post something funny on there. I've done it for
Nice.
8, 9 years. And the only reason, and some of the stuff is goofy, some of it's dorky, whatever, but it's just to put a smile on somebody's face. If you wake up in the morning, you're feeling crappy, you had a bad night, maybe you lost your job, maybe you've lost a loved one, but
Hmm.
just a little laugh in your life to
Right.
give just a moment of happiness, and maybe it changes somebody's thoughts who were going in a negative direction,
You
like,
never know.
God,
Yeah.
that's just funny as shit right there, and flip a
Yeah.
whole other direction. That's what I hated about masks. I hated masks because you couldn't see people smile. I like
Right.
my wife always asks me all the time because I'll be running, we'll be at the park, whatever. I'll say hi to everybody. Hey, good
Hmm.
morning. Hey, how you doing? Wave, hi.
Nice.
That split little 2 seconds does so much to somebody you don't understand. And
You
so I
never
really
know.
commend you on that, John. I really do.
Well,
That is
thank you, Brent.
incredible.
No, I think we're of the like mind that way. I appreciate that so much, and that I love the intentionality of what you're talking about. Right? That I used to my kids would always know when they were younger in the car or teenage. I'd always be waving at people as we're passing, like, "Oh, who's that?" I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And like, "Well, why are you waving at them?" Well, why not? We're fellow humans. And they'd always be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, we're so embarrassing." Or my wife always calls me Jonathan Sherman, friend of the world,
That's
because why not? There's so many grumpy people out there,
it's true.
and you never know how many people. I mean, I'm not going to be that easily offended. If someone grumps at me, it's not going to really affect me. I've got a pretty good sense of self, and I can take those things in stride. But you don't know what kind of day people have had, like you're saying. You don't
No,
know. And so
no.
when I'm at the grocery store, and I'm how many times have you been at the grocery store and the checkout person apologizes to you? I'm sorry for the wait, or I'm sorry that took so long. And I'm like, if this, I'll tell them, if this is the biggest problem I have all day, I'm having a great day. I think you're doing amazing. Don't you worry
Right.
about it at all. And then if I can see, if they got something cool going on with their hair, or they're wearing something fun, or got a cool earring, or got a tattoo, I want to comment on it, because it's like, have a personal moment. It only takes 30 seconds, like
Yeah,
you're saying, just to engage with someone on a human level. And it doesn't mean we're going to become best friends. And maybe to them, it's just a nice interaction. But some people, that may have been the only positive interaction they have with
it's
someone. They
true.
don't know, right?
And a simple
Yeah.
comment, like, wow, I really like that tattoo, changes the perspective of whatever thought they've been at. Now you've given them a compliment, given them a good compliment, and now you have something to relate to that they could share back with.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah,
sometimes you never know. Sometimes people open up and they got a story,
yeah.
Mhm.
right? I mean, I complimented on someone's this waitress's earrings the other day. We were just at Chili's with some buddies, and she had these cool green and red earrings with some little chili peppers in them. I said, "Those are the coolest earrings." She goes, "Oh, really? I made them. I just made them just this morning, and I'm going to make them
That's
for the
awesome.
rest of the. I'm going to make them for all the rest of the wait staff here." I'm like, that is so thoughtful of you. How are you that talented? And I just got to gush over this thing that she did, you know?
That's awesome.
And why not? Right. So I love that you think that way too. I think the world needs a lot of that.
It does.
And it doesn't
Well,
take a lot, is what you're saying.
No,
It doesn't take a lot, but it needs a
well,
lot of that. Yeah.
well, Jonathan, you've always been a personable guy. I've always liked you. When I first
Thanks,
met you the
man.
very first time, just
Thanks.
it's easy to talk to you. And I'm not surprised you're in a profession where you talk to people every day. In
Thanks.
fact, I think I visited you one time professionally.
We chatted a
Uh,
few times. Yeah.
yeah, we've chatted a few times.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess my question, when I served my LDS mission, I love the fact that you could teach someone, share with them, try to help them, in their relationship with God or, just getting them to a better place. However, there were times where I'd go home because people are people. They're going to not always step up and take care of their life, right?
Right. Sure.
And
Buddy, you were in
how
Philly.
I was going to say, with your bright, bubbly personality, therapy, how how did you make a connection with that? I mean, is it is this the profession that gets you out of bed real excited every morning going, yes, I get to talk to some people and help them out? Or can this be sometimes a profession that gets you down and, watching people's or marriages especially crash and burn? I mean,
Y-
I just don't know how you
yeah.
do it.
Yeah. Both of the above. And just so you know, nothing makes me want to get out of bed. I am a lazo to the core.
That's
So
right. I love it.
if I could sleep into the last minute, I
You'll
was
do it.
telling I was telling this client this other day, she was feeling kind of bad because, she's really struggling with motivation. And she was like, I don't know how you do it, Jonathan. You seem so motivated and he's like, you got it all together. I said, oh, no, no, I never want to go to work.
Hmm.
And that has nothing to do with my profession. I actually love my profession. I've been doing this for 30 years now. I'm still in love with the work. I'm not burned out. I still find it endlessly fascinating. I've learned
you
so
don't think
much and
about
I'll
it as
never
work.
even learn. What's that?
You don't think about it as work. You're
No,
doing
I
something
mean,
you enjoy.
yeah, I'm really blessed and
Yeah.
grateful. But I mean, but also it is still work and it's still a job. And I I was telling this girl, I was like, no, don't worry if you don't have that motivation. Just get up and do it anyway. The fact that you're willing to show up is where everything else happens, and stuff. And so I was telling her I'm the laziest, hardest working person she'll ever meet, or I'm the hardest working lazy person she'll ever meet. It's somewhere in that line. I don't know. But no, to your point is that I definitely like people oftentimes say to me, gosh, I don't know how you do that. I mean, just listen to people's problems all the time or these depressing stories. And gosh, there's plenty of that. There's a lot of hard things that people are going through. But, someone was telling me like, I couldn't do that. It sounds so depressing. I said, well, I'm so glad I don't do that. And they're like, what do you mean you don't do that? And I said, well, yeah, I hear all that stuff and we talk about all those things, but those aren't the people I'm working with. The people I'm
Mm,
working with, what the people who are coming to my office, what they don't know, the people coming to my office, they don't know how I see them. For most people to pick up that phone call and make that first appointment and walk through the first door of a therapist office is terrifying. And it
It is.
usually took them years to make that one phone call, to make that
mm,
one appointment. And they don't know what they're getting. They don't know
Right.
if it's just some provider they got off their insurance list. They don't know if it's me where they maybe hopefully got like most of my clients are word of mouth or they've met me maybe through a podcast or a workshop that I given or something. So they had at least some interaction with me or they have a positive referral from someone they trust. But even then, they don't know. Is it really going to click with that person? What if they're nice but not helpful? What
mhm,
if they're helpful kind of, but I don't really connect with them? And what is this person going to think of me? I'm so screwed up. It's so
mm,
embarrassing what I'm going through, whether it's relationship stuff or mental health or addiction stuff or whatever else and stuff. What they don't know is that I know what it takes for them to walk through that door. So
That's big.
everyone's got problems.
yeah.
That this person has a problem. That to me is like, not that interesting. Everyone's got problems. Big whoop de doo. Why is this person here when most people aren't doing a damn thing about their problems?
Right. They made it
Why
in.
is this person here? They walked through the door, faced all that fear, all that doubt, all that insecurity, and they chose to come anyway. That's someone who has courage and bravery. So I already have respect for them even before I've met them. And so, and even though they're going to come in and tell me their problems, that's not what they're here for. They're here
Mhm,
because they're looking for solutions, even if they don't know it's possible. I know it's possible. I know how to walk them through what seems impossible. So my job is I get to work every day with people who are willing to face hard things, even though they don't want to. They're showing up anyway. They may not leak, but like me, but most people don't like going to therapy, but they're coming anyway. And we're spending the whole time puzzling through difficult situations, looking for creative solutions. And that the vast majority of the time, people are walking out of the door feeling a bit more hopeful or feeling there's a path that they can go. Maybe they heard something they've never heard before. And so 9 times out of 10, even if it might have been mentally and emotionally draining, 9 times out of 10, when they're gone, I'm like,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got to have that experience with them and they're feeling better. And it's so nice, honestly, in my job to be at this stage of my career. Because when I was a new therapist, it was terrifying and draining a lot because people are asking you for help in their lives and you're the new kid on the block and you're an amateur. And it's kind of scary to be in that position for sure. It's very stressful. But at this stage, not that I know everything, but yeah, I've got a lot of,
Understood.
experience in a lot of different
Yeah.
settings. So to be able to not only have the confidence for myself, but to give that confidence to someone who's not feeling confident is definitely a special joy.
That's
Definitely.
I had a terrible experience with the marriage counseling. It's
Oh,
absolutely
no.
terrible. Oh, it
Really?
was. It
There's
was
a lot of good and bad out there,
was
unfortunately.
and like you said, that first step, my wife wanted us to do it. It was about 8 years ago. We were going through
Yeah.
some problems. Like everybody has,
Right.
nobody has a perfect way marriage. So
No.
listener, when you're listening and you're having those, everybody goes through it. They really do.
Absolutely. Amen. Even the
And
marriage
so
therapist. Yep.
I
Hmm.
finally agreed to go into this office, and I'm the type of person where I sense tones in
Mhm.
people, and if I feel like I'm being backed into a corner, I will attack. It's just
Mhm.
the way I am.
Right.
Always been like that.
Right.
Carl can relate. I've attacked him 100 times.
He comes back for more.
I come back. I can attack too. So I think
That's
we're in
why I love
favor.
my buddy. It's why I love my
Yeah.
buddy, because he understands
awesome.
me like nobody else does. So
That's awesome.
we go into this small room, and I already don't like his body actions and his tones. It's like, oh, it's so nice to see. And it just is like cringing because
Yeah.
like for me, I sense weakness is what I'm
Fake
sensing.
sincerity too.
Absolutely.
Or
And
fake.
so, we're talking and he's telling me how I need to be more communicative and like everything is on me, I feel like, and I'm slowly growing and growing and growing
Oh, I
with
totally know
rage.
this.
And
Yeah.
and finally he starts telling this story about, my wife and I have this garden and she started planting these strawberries that were in the garden. And I was
Oh.
like, sweetheart, you don't want to plant the strawberries in that spot of the garden. I lost it. And I stood up and I go, buddy, I don't give a fuck about you and your goddamn garden. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm out of here. And I walked out. Like I left.
Oh my!
And
I
Tracy's running, my wife's running after me like, Brent, stop, are you okay? I'm like, I am not going back to that guy ever.
That's
So,
awesome.
Well, that's a good question, Jonathan. How many people like Brent get asked to come to a therapy session without really much preparation
Oh my
and feel
gosh.
ambushed
Yeah.
because because I could see it because I'd be like,
I get the feeling,
well,
Jonathan,
that
you
therapist is on their
sense.
side. Yeah.
I get a feeling that you have a good perception of when they come, how to
Thanks.
go with the feeling, the mode, I get that just in talking to you from
Well,
the last
thank you,
few
man.
short
That means
minutes
a lot
here.
actually means a lot coming from someone like you because you're the kind of guy that I like to hit. Not like hit with that, but I like to
It's been a lot of
hit.
people have said that.
I just want to choke the guy. No, but I want to hit what that guy needs because absolutely right. Like you said, a lot of guys aren't given that preparation and therapy is traditionally not guy friendly. And I could go on
No.
and on. I could do a whole podcast just on this one topic. So that someone like you is picking up on that, you feel like I would get it. That means a lot because I really have thought about this a lot. Because I think for just generally speaking, not to say all women are this way and all men are that way, but generally speaking, therapy's a natural environment for women who communicate
gonna
and talk a lot
ask.
about their feelings and will verbally process a lot and relationally process with another person to problem
Right.
solve and to figure things out. So it's a natural environment. But for unless obviously for you guys who are, maybe more communicative or maybe more aware with your emotions, things like that, and you guys are good buddies and you talk about a lot of things, but typically in guy culture, you don't sit across from another guy and say, you know what, this is where I'm failing. Apparently
Right.
I can't even get, I can't even make my marriage work. let me share all my weaknesses with another man.
Exactly.
Oh, hell
And I
no.
think that's it
That is
right
not
there.
going to happen.
Sharing your faults with a complete stranger.
So with a complete
Yeah.
stranger, no, that is not guy culture. We're not going to do that. And so you have to really figure out what is going to make, like you said, picking up on tones. You got to read, where's this guy coming from? What's his language? What's his world? Because when I'm working with a couple, I am not trying to win the woman over. 9 times out of 10 in marriage counseling, you've got the dragger and the draggee. You've got the and usually it's the woman who's dragging in the husband. And so she's already bought into therapy. I'm not going to try to sell to her, even though I'm going to try to create a good relationship with her too. He's the guy I want to hit. He's the guy that I want to connect with. He's the one that I want to figure out what makes him tick, what's important to him. I need to enter his world, not try to get him to enter the therapy world, not try to get him to think like the therapist. I need to find out, what I don't know, whether it's sports, business analogies, car analogies, whatever it is that his world is. I want to figure out how to get into that. Not just so that we can have a relationship of trust, because I'm just honestly really interested in people. And you don't get to know people by telling them about you. You get to know people by really entering their world. When in Rome, do as the Romans do,
Right.
and stuff. So yeah, I always ask, just whenever I'm working with guys and women too, I'll ask every client this, but especially guys I'm paying close attention. I'll say, did you ever have any previous counseling? And if they did, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Because if they like something, I don't want to, that'll save me
Expand on
some
it.
time. I want to build
Yeah.
off of what's already working. But also if they had an experience like that, one, that's given me tons of information to tell me what makes this guy tick, like for Brent, and also what he hates. You just gave me, as the new therapist, you gave me a tutorial. Do this, don't do that. And if I'm smart enough and respectful enough to pay attention to what you just told me, I have a
Right.
chance of maybe connecting with you. So I had a guy, I've got a lot of people have said a lot of nice things about me, which is really nice. But this is probably my favorite compliment, was a guy like you who was going to be able to say either I connected or I screwed up. I had a one shot with this guy. And if I didn't get it right, he would have probably reacted the same way you did. F you, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. And as far as I'm concerned as a therapist, it's the therapist's job to connect.
Right.
And
Right.
so this was a guy, kind of gruff, kind of classic, old school, how guys are raised and stuff. Not going to talk, not going to open up his emotions, not going to show weakness, and just a big guy with huge, massive hands. And at the end, he shook my hand real firmly and he said, "Thanks for not sucking."
That was a
Compliment
huge
right there.
compliment,
That's a
man.
huge
Yeah.
compliment. And
Yeah.
I just laughed. He told me that I just laughed my head off. And he kind of looked at me kind of like, "Yep, you get it, man."
So
And
so
he
when
came
you
back. He came back and back and back, and he became a real fan of therapy. And he actually started telling his friends to come.
Huh.
He is the traditional guy. I'm not going to admit weakness. He's one of my biggest advertisers for opening up and talking about your relationship.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
It's so cool. But it's a make or break moment that the therapist has to take ownership of. I've heard so many people say, "Oh, well, therapy didn't work because maybe we didn't give it a good enough chance." I'm like, no, I blame the therapist. 9 times out of 10, if therapy isn't working, I tell my clients and I tell you guys, I tell your listeners, if therapy's not working, quit your counselor. Don't quit counseling. Counseling, when it's done right with the right connection, counseling does amazing things
Right.
individually or as a couple or as a family. If counseling isn't working, don't keep giving your counselor more of a shot. Fire
and
that person quick. And I tell my clients the same thing. If I'm not the right guy, we're going to fire my butt quick, because I'm not going to squander this motivation that got you here. If I can
Right.
help leverage that motivation into change, great. If not, we're going to fire my butt and get you connected with just the right person.
And that guy that I saw, maybe the way he speaks relates to someone else.
I'm sure it does.
I think you're right with that. Like that may be a target to somebody, but for me, that's the anti-target for me.
But his
Which would be hard to
job,
find.
and this thing that bothers me, this is where I get really heated about, as you can tell, I'm a little passionate about this. I am so upset with therapists. There are so many good ones out there and there's so many crummy ones out there.
Mhm.
That's great that he can connect with someone, but his job is to connect with you. That's my job
So-
as a therapist.
So when you
It's my job to
begin,
join the client's world, not just show them my style. I'll show them my style, but I also need to figure out, how do I join with you? How do I join with someone who's a huge therapy fan? How do I join with an elderly woman, how do I join with a pissed off 16-year-old teenage girl? That's my job.
Yeah.
And I realize I can't be everything to everyone. And I'm not going to meet with, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but therapists need to take a lot of ownership, I think, on really working hard to connect and taking that burden off of the client.
So when
I
you meet with somebody, do you sorry, Carl, but do you meet with both the man and woman at the same time, or do you sometimes separate it and speak
good
individually
question.
to them?
I do both, but I would say that the majority of the time is meeting with both of them first.
Mhm.
But in some circumstances, they may feel more comfortable meeting with me one on one, and I let the clients make that decision if they prefer it one way or the other. I always give them the option, but most of the time they meet together for the first time, and then
Okay.
sometimes we'll just all our sessions will be couple sessions. Some will be breakout sessions where I'll meet with him and I'll meet with her. It may vary, you know.
Well, Jonathan, based on this conversation you just had with Brent, I think, and just going through relationships in my life, it breaks down, I guess, to communication, doesn't it? Really? I mean, because we're talking about communication
Sure.
between you and your client, but um, what do you think the number one problem is for most couples? And the reason why they're in therapy? I mean, I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but especially at age 40 to 50, what is usually the main issue when they come in?
Yeah, great question, and it's kind of the answer is hopefully different than maybe what you expected because everyone comes in and going, yeah, communication, we don't communicate. We have a problem with communication. We need to communicate better. And that's all accurate. What I've found is that the biggest problem is the one that most people aren't even aware of. Because here's the thing is that most people are asking four wrong questions that sound like good questions. But if we're asking the wrong questions and we don't know that the wrong questions, we're going to keep getting the wrong answers. And that's where most
Hmm,
couples are stuck. And the four wrong questions are this: what's wrong with me? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with us?
hmm,
When what I found over 30 years of doing this is that, yeah, of course there's things wrong with her and him and me and us. Of course, those things exist. But that's rarely the actual core issue. The core issue is what do we not know that we need to know and how do we apply that? Education and intervention is what we know are the two things that will um excuse me, let me back up. We know that 2/3 of all divorces could be prevented with just those two things: education and intervention. Education being what do we need to know that we don't know? Intervention being how do we apply that knowledge with our particular circumstances and our personality. That doesn't mean all divorces can be prevented, but 66%, that's a lot of families held together. That's a lot of love reborn and saved. That's a lot of money, the cost, just the financial cost, but then the emotional toll. Because
mhm,
everybody's getting into marriage because they're wanting it to work,
Sure.
right? Duh.
yeah,
We know the
absolutely.
divorce statistics are grim, right? And it gets worse with subsequent relationships. It doesn't get better. But out of all the marriages that are currently married, what's their first, second, or third marriage, only 25% report being happily married. And
Oh,
yet
that's sad.
100% are expecting to be happily
Mhm,
married. So there, I mean, if I said, "Hey, Brent, hey, Carl, I want to sell you this car," there's only a 25% chance you'll like it. You going to buy that car? Are you that
Right.
stupid? Are you going to buy
yeah,
a house on that? No one's going to do that. And yet we don't know what these numbers are. We don't know how to kick the tires of a marriage. We think as long as we're in love and we're compatible enough that it'll work. We
We
don't
can make
know
it
what we
work.
don't
Yeah.
know. And so much of the work I do is, yes, I will teach them communication skills and those are valuable. But the interesting research on communication training is that it breaks down into thirds. A third of the time that you teach communication skills, it makes the relationship better, as you would imagine. A third of the time, it doesn't really have an effect one way or the other. A third of the time, it makes the relationship worse.
hmm.
Learning good communication skills makes it worse because all the communication skills are just that. They're just skills. They're just tools. A hammer can build, a hammer can break.
People can manipulate the skill too to make the other
That's what they end
person.
up doing. So if your
Right.
intention is understanding and improving the relationship, then those communication skills will work based on that intention. If your intention is to manipulate, like you're saying, or to win, or to dominate or control, then that will
Mhm.
make the relationship worse. And so it's not just learning more communication, although that's always a good thing, but that's rarely the actual core issue. It's needing to replace misinformation with good information, because we don't teach emotions in relationships in any systematic way in our culture. And what we usually teach is not only wrong, it's toxic, it's ineffective, it doesn't work. And yet, the three of us, well, you guys probably studied math together because you guys are really old friends. But I mean, if I were to say to you right now, 5 times 5 equals 25, we're all going to agree. We all had the same math training. We all got the same driver's training, right? We all got the same K through 12 for at least the basics, so that we can all function and interface with each other in a safe way. But everyone has emotions, the same emotions. Everyone wants to interface as an emotional being with another emotional being in a relationship. But no, we're not going to give any systematic training there. So imagine if the three of us try to do math, and Brent, you believe that 5 times 5 equals 64, and Carl believed it equaled 4, and I believe that it equaled oranges and bananas. How would we ever interface and function? We would constantly just argue, well, no, well, this is how it is. Well, no, this is how it is. Well, you're an idiot. Well, you're an idiot. Well, you need to listen to what I'm thinking. We need to communicate better. No, we don't need to communicate better. You need the right knowledge so that we can then communicate correctly with the right knowledge. So if we try to communicate better, and you believe that 5 times 5 equals 64, and you believe it equals 4, and I believe it equals bananas and oranges, communicating better around wrong facts doesn't improve the relationship.
So why isn't there a school for people to go to relationships before they get into these relationships? Because I'm always wondered, would it be worth it to pay for my kids' therapy session before they get married?
Like the Catholic Church has, before you get married in the Catholic Church, you have to go to these classes with a priest.
Some of the churches do. Yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
But what I was going to expand on what Jonathan was talking about is, when I was 18 years old, I probably believed 5 times 5 was 25. At 28, I may have believed it was apples and oranges. At 38, I probably believed it was 78. And so how much of it is when I met my wife 35 years ago at 18 years old, when I turned 28, I'm a complete different person than I was at 18. I'm not that same person. And when I'm at 48 and today, I'm definitely not the same person that I was at 28 and an 18.
Sure. Right.
And maybe I'm just that big of an asshole that she doesn't like me anymore anyway. But some of that is we change as we progress in life, as we gain knowledge, as we do things, and like you said, maybe marriage isn't for everybody, and maybe you've changed that much that it's just not that click for you, that it's not going to work.
Right.
How do you relate or realize that?
Yeah. And maybe this all tied back, because you were starting to say, Brent, before Brent was talking, Carl, you said maybe I should buy therapy for my kids before I get married. Yes, that 1,000 times that. If I could only get one message across tonight, do not get married without doing premarital counseling, whether it's your first marriage, your second marriage, your third marriage. Do not. The research is so no-brainer on this, is that this is what gets people outside of those grim divorce statistics. 45% of first marriages fail, 60% of second marriages fail, 75% of third marriages fail. Well, if education and intervention is the thing that can prevent 2/3 of divorces, when's the best time to get that education and intervention? Which you asked, what's the biggest problem I see? Is the lack of education and intervention. Well, when's the best time to get that? 10 years into your marriage, 20 years into marriage, or before you get married? When's the best time to write up the blueprint for the house? 10 years into building the house, or before you even dig one shovelful of dirt?
No, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I always thought that. I think the problem is some people make an excuse that, well, do they take insurance? Therapy's so expensive. I mean, you're doing something a little different. You're doing a workshop, right?
Yeah. Well, let me just touch on that too, is that without a doubt, especially if you're paying out of pocket, I'm not cheap. That's for sure. And a lot of therapy isn't cheap, and not everybody has insurance. And that's a legit problem. I do work with a lot of clergy in my faith where they actually help pay for that for people who can't. I do some pro bono work, but my out of pocket clients, it's not cheap. Or if you do have insurance, thank goodness, but we don't have that as a universal service for or a healthcare thing for everyone. The problem though, what I have with that argument of, well, it's so expensive, people will nickel and dime saving their marriage, but when it comes to the divorce, well, boy, they will beg, borrow, steal, sell, put the attorneys on credit cards.
Mm.
It is the amount it costs to invest in your marriage. Not that every marriage is going to work, but a lot of them can. The amount of money you'll spend on working with me, even over the course of a full year, if you were to see me every single week, will be a fraction of your divorce.
Hmm.
And so I had a buddy once, a case in point, a buddy once who, fortunately, he finally agreed to go to counseling, and he really needed to. And I was following up with him and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he goes, "Oh, it's actually, is it a good fit? The person you're working with?" "Yeah, I feel like he's actually been helping us, and it's been good." "Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that." I said, "I'm curious, how much does he cost?" He goes, "I don't know. The insurance covers, we just have a $20 copay." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." He goes, "Yeah, if it wasn't for that, I don't think we'd be going." And I'm like,
Jeez.
"What do you mean you wouldn't be
Oh,
going?" He
yeah.
goes, "Well, it's just so expensive." And I said, "You've got to be kidding me. How many sets of golf clubs do you have? How often are you going to play golf? How many sets of skis do you have? Tell me about those four runners you have and this amazing new truck." You have just made a really clear message that your entertainment and fun is worth this amount of measurable dollars. Your marriage is worth $20 a week.
Wow.
I can agree
That
with
is a
that, though.
powerful message. Now, I realize not everybody has those resources, but he had the resources, and his allocation was on his interests.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's
Well,
an amazing message to send.
Well, here's an interesting scenario. I wanted to bring it up because it's personal. I just started dating this girl,
Oh, cool.
long distance.
Yeah.
Brent knows about her, the Monticello girl, Brenda. She's a nice lady.
Hey, Carl,
Nice.
give the $20 copay first before this. This is counseling.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
here. This
Okay.
is
Well,
this
this
is billable hours right here.
Well, she's been through a lot. I won't go into too much detail,
Sure,
but
of
she's
course.
been in some abusive relationships.
Mhm.
Nicest lady in the world. One
Nice.
thing though, after we started dating, at first you have the infatuation period. We went on this long kind of break because it just wasn't financially feasible to come visit her. And she got very nervous because she thought I was gonna fall out of love with her in
Yeah.
that month. And anyway, we got into some circular conversations that just made it worse and worse, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And she felt like I wasn't listening to her. I felt like she wasn't listening to me. I even broke it off with her 1st of January,
Mhm.
just because I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I'm the right person for her. Maybe
Right.
she's not the right person for me. To her credit, she came and visited me just a couple weeks ago. We sat down and talked in person, which is a lot
Nice.
better than on the phone, by the
Oh
way.
my gosh, that's great.
Yeah. And so we're making another go of it, but
Good.
I can really see where, because of past experiences with other relationships, because of parents, the way you
Uh-huh.
grew up,
Right.
these all kind of make us into who we are.
Right.
And so I guess my question is, I mean, would one series of workshops or one, because you're, like you said, it does cost a little money to do this. How long should someone go through therapy before they know they're healed? I mean, that's a question that you really, I guess you got to throw out there.
That's a loaded
because-
question right there.
How many?
Yeah.
How many? Brent, this was before we got on the recording. Brent was sharing his fitness journey,
Yeah.
and you just proudly, rightfully so, after a lot of accomplishment, you just proudly said that you're on you're reaching, or you reached your 500th class at Orange Theory.
Wow. Have you really?
Has
gone 500
anybody
times?
ever said? Has anybody ever said to you, 500? Isn't that excessive? Aren't you getting too dependent on that? Shouldn't you be able to do that on your own?
That's a good
That's
point.
really ridiculous. That's too much money. But I'll tell you, everybody's
Good
like,
point.
oh gosh, how long is this going to take? People ask me that all the time. How long is our marital or our mental health fitness going to take? Maybe I can
No
invest
answer.
6 or 12 sessions. You tell me, Brent, how effective 6 or 12 trips to Orange Theory would have been in your success journey.
It depends on if that's your goal. If your goal
Yeah.
is to hit 6 classes and then that's it and you're done, boom, But I don't think in a relationship or something like that, in an extended overall success? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, because I don't know anybody when we have, like you were saying, Carl, is that we certainly develop our personality and our styles and our life experiences from a hodgepodge of maybe a good child, a good family we grew up in, maybe a terrible one, maybe abuse, maybe abundance, maybe all kinds of good or bad experiences, but nothing systematic, nothing universal. And so, but we spend a lot of time doing that, and then we try to meet and then just try to think if we love each other enough and we're good enough people that it'll just mesh.
Mhm.
There's no
Right.
logic to that. And that's one reason why, like in our careers, we spend at least, if you had a college education or if you were in a trade, you spend at least 4 years or more
It's true.
training to have skill sets and knowledge specific to that profession. If you're in a trade, you work for years as an apprentice and a journeyman and before you become a master. And because that's a logical expectation that very few major transformations or major knowledge acquisitions is going to occur in 6 or 12 hours.
See, the
Nobody
problem.
has that expectation when it comes to other areas of success. And this is the real problem with mental health and relationship stigma, is that there's a magical thinking belief that if I'm a good enough person, I should just be able to manage my own problems. If we're good enough people, we should
Yeah.
just be able to know how to
Right.
love and relate with each other. And there's no basis for that because we don't apply that theory in sports or business or education or architecture or anything. We assume, yes, if you're a good person, that's wonderful. If you're passionate, that's going to help, but I don't really care how good of a person you are or how much you love what you do. Are you good at it? Do you know
Well,
what you're doing? Are you skilled and are you trained? Yes
Well,
or no?
and,
well,
and
think
That
of
with your
requires
question,
that.
you.
Yeah.
like
What?
you and I are two different people. Okay.
Sure.
So for someone to come to Jonathan and say, how long will it take? That's an impossible question
Oh, yeah, it
to
is. It
answer
is. It
It's a
is.
fair question, but it's an
because
impossible
it
question.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what he is doing for me, he's not going to do with you. Your
Right.
thing is going to be completely different. And you
Right.
know what? You may be ready in 2 months. I may be ready in 3 years.
I was going to bring up the analogy of like a plumbing issue. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's a problem.
Your pipes
I
are
mean,
clogged,
it's
Carl.
obvious. Getting fights all the time with her. Where same arguments come up all the time.
Right. Right.
There's a leak, and then you wait until the pipe bursts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to you and I say, Jonathan, my pipe burst, my marriage burst. What do I do about it?
Right.
And can you tell me in 2 hours or less how to fix it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you've got to throw your arms up in the air and just
Well,
not shake your head and go,
well,
yeah,
and I'm a pretty straight shooter, and I think most people that I work with appreciate that. So I'm not going to just say, I'm not the therapist who's going to tell you what you want to hear.
right.
I hope that a
Go
lot of
far.
what I say is going to be what you want to hear because it's going to help you get your goals accomplished. In that sense, it's going to be what you want to hear. But I let people know I try to honestly, even though on the one hand, I just made this whole big spiel about really connecting and helping people feel safe and wanting to bring them into it.
Right.
When it gets down to the work, my next job is I try to scare them away.
Oh,
I want
really?
people to know that
Mhm.
I am not the guy who's going to tell you, oh, there's a few there's some great therapy trick or there's this cool new mindset that's going to transform you in 30 days. I'm not a snake oil salesman. I know the research, I know the evidence, and like anything in life, if you want to be great, when I talk about the great relationship, which is my whole tagline, greatness in relationships, if you want a great relationship with a great outcome, gear
Mhm.
up, buddy. You better get ready to do some great work. And
Yeah.
great means massive and a lot. So I'm not someone who's going to just sell somebody, a 3-step easy program. Expect to do work. And this is not for everybody
Hmm.
because I'm not the therapist who's going to tell you everything you want to hear and just blow sunshine and just validate everything you say. I'm going to challenge people. My job is to be a super encouraging cheerleader and help you through the hard times. My job is to be a huge pain in the ass coach and push you. And if I'm doing my job right, you'll probably get pissed off at me several times.
No, it sounds like physical therapy,
Yeah.
or physical.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels.
Same premise, right?
There
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
So let me ask
There
you
is.
then, Jonathan. So even though we said couldn't just automatically assume and give us the amount of time, but for our listeners out there, and most of them have been married 20 plus years. What would you say are 5 things that you would recommend, keys, if you would, to maintaining a successful marriage? Not keeping one, not having one, but maintaining a successful marriage.
yeah.
What are 5 keys that you would have?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I can give you a list of 1 if I only have room for 1. I can give you a list of 3 or 5, or I can give you a list of 7 or 20. There's so many good answers to that. But I'll tell you, I'll give you some of my crucial go-tos when I only have like a short time like this. What am I going to share? Man, there's some good ones. Without a doubt, dating is so talked about and so underutilized. And there's some key problems with dating that keep people from doing it. One of the biggest problems you mentioned, as you were talking about, Brent, I don't know your situation, but as you're saying, at 18, I was different, 28, 38. Of course, we do change. The problem is people aren't maintaining the relationship as they're making their changes. And so they end up drifting apart and growing apart. So most marriages or most relationships work like on this model, which is we fall in love, then we drift apart, and then we fall out of love. Falling, drifting, falling. These are accident, unintentional words. No one ever drifted into success. Nobody fell into greatness. Okay. And so in the initial stage, like with where you're at, Carl, with this person that you're dating, and you guys are attracted to each other and trying to figure it out, there's a lot of intentional pursuit, right? There's a hunting. We're courting, we're wooing, we're dating, we're trying to win this person over to us. And that's the right thing to do. And then what happens is when most people get married, very unintentionally, for any number of reasons, after they've hunted this person and found them and got them in their lives, and it's wonderful and they're happy, they very unintentionally chop off the relationship head, mount it as a prize on the wall, and then they go about life and they stop hunting. Because in ancient hunting, if you don't hunt, I mean, now people can hunt now for sport, but no one's hunting for survival. In ancient hunting throughout the history of the world, if you don't hunt, you die. What you killed last week doesn't count for today.
Right.
And so the simple act of pursuing, when I ask couples, and I've been doing this, like I said, for 3 decades, when I ask couples, when's the last time they went on a date? Most of them have to think. And they're like, oh gosh, it's been a few months. It's been a few years.
Now, when you say dating, you mean each other, right? I just want to clarify that. Right.
Yeah. Definitely dating each other is really the key to marital success.
Tracy sitting next to him right now.
That's right. Good clarification, Brent. I appreciate that.
So, I want to make sure I understand this. I'm writing down notes. Take girls on dates, and that's not it. So I have to readjust that here.
Since we've done the podcast, Jonathan, Brent's marriage is so good because every Wednesday night I get this text like, when the hell are you going to have an episode up? And I'm like, I'm working on it. He says, my date's going to happen in the next half hour. I need it done because that's what we do. We listen to the podcast and grab donuts or hot chocolate.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great date. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Awesome. And it's something, so it's the fact that most people I found aren't dating. And then, and dating, of course, we think of dating, of course, like as you and Tracy do, right? It's a nice way to connect and spend time with each other, talk or laugh or be romantic or whatever it is, just hang out. That's a great reason in and of itself, just for that. But underneath that is a very unromantic word, which is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing in life self-maintains. Cars don't self-fill with gas. Lawns don't self-mow. Toilets don't self-clean. Nothing self-maintains, and yet most people are running their relationships on fumes and wondering why they're not able to zip around because they're not maintaining it.
Spontaneous and magical all the time. And reality is you have to put effort into a relationship.
Yeah,
I do change your oil after every 3,000 miles, so I am very.
That's good. That's good.
We probably don't have time for this, so I will say that maybe we talk about it another time, or I will definitely. I'll be putting when I do my podcast. I'll definitely, which will be. I'll plug it right here. I'll probably launch it in the next month or so. It's called Relate Great with Jonathan Sherman and Friends, and I'll definitely at some point go over the 5 date night rules. It's a structure that solves Most people, when they say, well, we don't have time to date or we can't date or we have these problems, that's why we no longer date because of the fights we have or any number of things. These 5 rules solve almost all the date night barriers so that we can really make the date night something that's not just good for maintenance, which is crucial, but also really use it for enhancement so that as we're going through the changes of 18, 28, 38, 48, we're actually growing the relationship along with our changes and we're changing with our
Good.
relationship, not our relationship being on the altar that can be sacrificed and
Right.
stuff. So it's amazing how restorative this approach is, but also how preventative it is as well, especially if we get young couples into this mindset early on.
One
So,
last question. One last question.
Mhm.
I'm killing me to ask you this.
yeah,
It's a softball, maybe, but you say basically relate great. In
uh-huh.
other words, build the best relationship possible. If I'm going to a chef, I want to know the chef eats his own food. In other
Yeah,
words, yeah, he's like I am.
yeah.
He loves the food.
Never
I
trust a
got a
skinny
question
chef.
for you.
Right.
Yeah, do you have a great relationship, Jonathan?
We do. My wife and I, we've been married. We've married 32 years next month. We've been friends for 37 years. Um, and uh, and we could have very easily been a divorce statistic like anybody else. We are not a magic unicorn relationship. And even though she's an amazing person and I'm a fantastic swell fella, obviously, look at me, but we came from very different backgrounds, very different personality styles. Some people kind of wondered how did they end up together with their personality styles being so different and and stuff. But fortunately, we're not just dependent on just our personality styles or just the way we were raised. Fortunately, like you always see people say, well, marriage doesn't come with a manual. Like, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, but they got these things at Amazon called books. Have you heard of those? They're called manuals. You know how many marriage manuals are out there? There's so many
Oh,
really good ones.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate that excuse. Let's stop being passive in our relationships, falling, drifting, falling. My marriage didn't come with a manual. Get proactive. Nobody does that with their business. Well, my business didn't come with a manual, so I guess I just have to fail. No. There's how many business books are out there? Go become an
Thousands.
expert in that field, thousands and stuff. And so, no, when I first went into this field, though, I heard that among married graduate students in marriage and family therapy programs, there was a high rate of divorce.
Hmm.
And
Really?
I'm thinking, I don't want to be, I don't, and not me judging people who get divorced, but me being, I don't want to be the marriage therapist on his 5th marriage. I don't think most
Right.
people want to go to that guy, to your point that you're saying, Carl. And so, plus I grew up in a pretty nasty divorce situation. I saw there's a lot more to my background story. Why did Jonathan become a therapist? It's not a very pretty story in a lot of ways. And but also so I wanted to make sure that I didn't go through that personally. I wanted to make sure that my wife didn't go through what my mom went through. I wanted to make sure that my kids didn't go through what we went through. And so this mission to create greatness in relationships is twofold. It's definitely because I am, as we were talking about earlier, I'm that happy-go-lucky. I want, like you were talking about, Brent. I want to, make a difference in the world. I want to connect with people, and I want to hopefully help other people be happy. But there's definitely a self-serving, self-interest part of this. I want this for me.
Right.
Awesome.
I need this. I couldn't go through it in my childhood and in my adulthood. I needed a different experience, and I wanted to
That's
make sure that
awesome,
my
man.
kids sure as hell never went through what we went through.
Yeah.
So is there
You
a
know,
book?
Yeah.
Is there a book though for you before your podcast or down
Yeah,
the road?
as far as the only relationship book you will ever need, all the other books can be burned because mine will be the best. So just to adjust expectations realistically. No, but I am just finishing writing up Building Strong Families, 7 Principles to Strengthen Your Partnering and Your Parenting.
Okay.
And it's based on the research on strong family, positive psychology, the resiliency model of what do strong families do versus just studying what's wrong with people in dysfunction. We started studying what's right with how are people functioning well in a family realm, and are those things that we can learn from them? Yes, and can we replicate them? Yes, and stuff. So this is the workshop I've done for decades to in every type of different setting with my clients. I've done them in prisons, I've done them in churches, I've done them in corporations, I've done it at professional conferences, and it seems to universally resonate because we're all in that boat. Whatever our family makeup is, we're all trying to connect better. We love our kids, we love our partners, we want to be the good people that we are, And so whether it's like really trying to improve a bad situation or really just enhance a really you just build off strengths we already have. This one mom said in a preview of the program, she goes, I don't want another program where I just have to read a whole bunch of things that just remind me of the things that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good, because I don't have time for that. And you shouldn't have time for that. This is a book about building off of what you have, not creating a list of the things you need to be doing more of. And so to me, I'm a big fan of less is more with whether it's my book or anybody else's. Take a few things and run with it. Throw the rest out. Creating a little change is better than creating a lot of change poorly and stuff. And so anyway, but this book will be launching hopefully in the next month, and it'll be also, if people are interested, they can go to relategreat.net/strong fam. And there's going to be a companion online course that goes with it. So the workshop that I give, plus all the extra information that I've have based on these seven principles.
And in Utah, what we'll do is we'll put your phone number on the episode description.
Oh, cool.
So if they want to reach out to you or your email, they can do
in
that.
Utah.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's great. And it doesn't have to be Utah. I mean, I work with people all around the world. I do that. The relationship strategist.
Now you can do everything on Zoom now, can't you?
Right. Yes. I've got clients all over the world.
Is our podcast
I do those through relationship consulting. I don't do therapy with people outside of there, but I can definitely give people all kinds of advice and guidance around the world that way. Brent, I'm sorry. I think you said something, man. I think.
Oh, no, I just say, is our podcast only in Utah?
No, he's just not kidding me.
Mr. Iran.
I was assuming because of the licensing that you can't just go anywhere. So
nope, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so I can only do therapy within the state you're licensed in. That's right.
Yeah. I had an interesting thought though, and it kind of went back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, because I imagine people who did marriage therapy back when my parents were younger had a completely different realm of what they would talk about, because the noise wasn't as loud then as it is today.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
What our kids are going to go through with their marriages is going to be even more noise, because you look at the media, you look at TV now, exactly, phones and everything. But when's the last time on a sitcom you saw the nuclear family? You saw a mother, a father, and kids.
Oh, yeah.
When's the last time on this sitcom you saw that?
Right.
You don't see that anymore. You do not see that.
And 30% of the children now identify as LGBTQ plus. I mean, it's dynamics is going to be just different.
So it's pulling those strings harder and harder and further and further. In the 50s and in the 40s, we didn't have these kind of issues that we're dealing with today in 2024.
It's a different landscape.
2044, Matt, oh my goodness.
It'll be a different landscape. Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah. The step family is the most common family form. And so when we keep thinking on the nuclear family, that's another reason why I want people, when I said don't get married unless you do premarital counseling, because part of that premarital counseling needs to be with somebody, a family therapist who knows step family dynamics. If you're not training for that crucial bit of dynamics, that is a whole nother issue, a variable that creates layers of complexity. So we can't just go in and do premarital counseling for us. We needed to do step family training for us as the parents. How do we, as the parents and the step parents, how do we actually interface in a way? Because that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother conversation for sure. But just knowing that ahead of time for anybody who's in that position, it's a game changer. That there is nothing more powerful than knowledge, and ignorance is the most costly thing. When you said earlier, what's the biggest problem that I face that couples come with? It's ignorance, not stupidity. Ignorance. Ignorance, fortunately, is highly curable with knowledge.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I don't know how to change you. I don't know how to change a person. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't know how to change someone. But changing knowledge and changing behaviors and changing skills, we're very malleable that way.
Right. And if
that's the saving grace. That's the saving grace.
They're going to make the effort and change.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks, Jonathan. This has been awesome that you've been on our
pleasure.
program.
Thank you. This is really,
you
guys are easy to talk to.
Too. Yeah. I mean, we have a burning topic that's related to therapy. You're the man. So.
Yeah, anytime. Happy to talk with you guys. You guys are great to talk with. I've been on lots of different, podcasts and stuff. And some people are really great interviewers and some aren't. You guys are just it just feels like just talking to a couple buds. So
That's what we love to
thank you
see.
for
So-
making it really easy and comfortable for me.
So one last question: how do I get
Uh-huh.
my wife to take on the idea of a sister wife?
You're
She just told me to
Catholic,
fuck
dude.
off back then. I don't know if you heard that.
That's a sin, brother.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, I don't think I have any
Fantastic
advice for
having
you,
on.
but I should probably talk to your wife and give her a heads up. So
See what I have to
She
put
just
up
heard
with
it in the
on
next
that.
room, and she was like, "Fuck
No.
you, Brendan. That ain't gonna happen."
We do have a
Thank you
good
very
time.
much,
You
Jonathan.
missed one of our buddies, Sean, too. He's a good guy as well.
I wish I could
so,
have met Sean. So
Yeah.
No,
anyway,
you don't.
well,
You really don't. You're fine.
He filled in nicely as the third dad bod today, Jonathan.
well, I'm
Thank you.
glad I could help out, fill out the extra space. So
No, definitely.
Hey, everybody,
All
thank
right.
you for listening. And hey, guys, great episode. We'll talk to y'all later.